The weather pattern is blocked. Tropical cyclones have been blocked from entering the U.S., at least for now. Smoke has been blocked from leaving the U.S. The American climate model has blocked winter from coming, but do other models agree? We'll look at that in just a minute. A solar flare and CME have not been blocked, and they are headed this way. And because of its absolutely ridiculously, preposterously absurd solution that the GFS tried to sell us yesterday afternoon, it has been blocked from this channel for the foreseeable future, but not before I show you those images coming up right now as we take a look at the tropics. Hi everyone, and welcome into the channel. Jason Pritchard, your host for Cold Rain's Weather World, where we've got all the weather, and we've got a lot of weather to talk about today, and I'll have all of the chapters broken out in the description here, but we're going to start by taking a look at the tropics. And yesterday I did a deep dive, took a look at the big picture pattern and some of the variables that are going to come together over the next 1 to 3 weeks out here in the tropics to impact what we see eventually as we go out in time. Much of that thinking is still intact. There are a few things that have changed, and we'll look at those changes today in a quick hitting fashion. And one of those things that has changed is the formation of the initial wave out here in the central Atlantic. And the models we're keying in on that in a pretty heavy way, and a lot of them were developing it. Well, we're seeing a little less enthusiasm about that today. Now, you're looking at the Weather Nerds page, and this is the European Ensemble Suite. 51 members make up this suite. And all 51 members have the opportunity to show something developing or not show something developing. And so if they do, where will it go? Well, we're going to look at that right now. We've got that funky GFS solution coming up as well. But here's what we see. A lot of the members, almost all of them, have something to do with Dexter way up here almost off the screen. But look at this lead wave down here in the central Atlantic. Yesterday, a lot of L's were here. Today, quite a few less. We're looking at about 10 to 15, and it gets a little bit less as we go on out in time. We also had more enthusiasm about development out here off the Carolina coast. We're not seeing a lot of that enthusiasm today either, which is good news, and good news that a lot less members develop this. And the members that do develop it, what do they do with it? Well, they take it on out into the Atlantic, and we get this recurve, which I've expected. Even if there is development, we should see a recurve east of Bermuda. Hopefully that's the case. Now, behind this wave is the wave that I've become more concerned about, the one that's just getting ready to emerge off of Africa. Now, many members are keying in on this wave, and some of them develop it right away off the coast into the Atlantic, and some wait and take their time and develop it a little bit later. But as we roll this along, look what happens. It takes a much more southerly, ominous, threatening track, and then we have some divergence way out in time as we approach day 10, which is next weekend. Okay, so that's what's going on out here in the Atlantic from the eyes of the European ensembles. The GFS ensembles have a similar sort of solution set here, so we're not going to waste time looking at it. But just know that even though we have no idea what's going to happen way out in time in terms of exact will something develop and where will it go, we have good agreement here across the ensemble suite, a reputable suite, that there is a potential for development and a potential for that development to track somewhere in the vicinity of the United States. So we're going to have to keep watch on it. Here's the satellite picture. Here's that lead wave that we're talking about developing right out here. And then we've got additional energy coming off of Africa behind that. So we're going to watch these as they track. There's Dexter up here. And this little low out here off the southeast coast is really not doing much. It's not really producing much in the way of convection. And you need to see robust convection if you want to see development in the tropics this time of year. So that's what's going on there. As a matter of fact, the National Hurricane Center has downgraded this to a 30% chance of formation. And if it does, look where it goes, off to the northeast. So not much to worry about here. And then this disturbance down here, if you can see the whole cone there, but if I hover over it, you get a little box, and it will potentially develop 60% chance of formation out here, and it should recurve. It's got it pointed toward Bermuda, but we're seeing a lot of guidance suggest that it would recurve east of there. They're not issuing any sort of development potential for this wave coming off of Africa. That would be the one that we would be concerned about to emerge and get toward us, potentially in the 2-ish to 3 week time frame as we get on in toward the end of August, but they will probably do so as we go on out in time. This is the ocean heat content. We sometimes show surface temperatures here, and surface temperatures are important, but we need to see heat through a depth if we want to really assess the fuel potential for hurricanes. And we see a lot of oranges and reds showing up in here near the Caribbean and off the coast into the Gulf Stream, off the coast of the United States, into the Gulf of Cold Rain down here. And this is where we would find explosive potential if we were to see development. So just keep that in the back of your minds. Here is the European ensemble suite in terms of its shear forecast. We've rolled this out to 150 hours. This is mid next week. We're seeing reds down here in the main development region, and I'll scroll down a little bit so we can see that better. And some blues. Blues are below average shear. Reds are above average shear. And if we roll this on out through time, you see that those reds kind of dissipate as we get on out into 10 days out next Sunday, and we're seeing much more in the way of blues and whites take over the picture. And once that happens, we have a much better shear environment, so that if something does develop toward mid to late August and roll into this environment, we could see a much better upper level environment for thunderstorms and convection and maintenance and even formation of tropical cyclones. If one forms and moves in there, it's going to have favorable conditions as it gets into the Caribbean, into the Gulf, and off the southeast coast as we go on out in time. So that's what we're looking at from a shear standpoint. Ocean heat content is good, dry air is abating, so conditions are still favorable. This is the GFS solution from 18Z yesterday afternoon. Look at this. Now watch what happens. It recurves a system out here toward Bermuda, actually, and then here it comes with another formation down here in the main development region. And look at this. We get on out in time. We have one lead wave, one trailing wave. Both of them take the southerly route. And oh boy, look at this. Two major hurricanes approaching the United States. The Gulf is about to get obliterated. The Southeast is about to get obliterated, and the run stops, and we don't get the payoff. Of course, we're not looking for any sort of payoff, and we don't want to see tropical cyclones hit. But when the GFS is the GFS being stupid and doing GFS things, you get two major hurricanes way out here at 384 hours next or Friday, August the 22nd. So do not take this solution literally. The GFS has no clue on what it's trying to do here, particularly out in time. No model is going to get the 2-week weather pattern exactly right, but that is absurd. It's silly, and you could draw a little frowny face down here if you want to with those two eyeballs headed toward the United States. Don't panic when you see stuff like that, folks. It's silly. And then finally, we get on in here, and so the GFS has been banned forthwith from the foreseeable future for this weather site here. We'll may give it another shot. We get on into the fall. Here's the European ensemble probability map. So this shows you a little bit better about the probabilities of what's going on. See, probabilities have come down with that lead wave. Of course, this is Dexter, so it's already formed, so it's a high probability of doing something. And then we get on out in time, we see that second wave coming in with a much, much higher probability of developing as we get forward. And even some little probabilities, some 20 to 30% chance probabilities showing up down here in the Gulf. We'll watch that area. That frontal zone is still hanging off, and you always got to watch that, but these are 80 to 90 to even close to 100% probability down here as we get on out in time. So we're probably going to see something develop, and we'll see where it goes from there. And that's your tropical update. Now, we've got your weather IQ question coming up, so hope you studied up. We've got another tropical question coming right ahead. Like I said, folks, thanks for being here. If there's anything I can pray over for you, please put it in the comment section. I always appreciate the comments that you all make. You make good comments on this channel, and I appreciate that. And I always look at all of them and respond to them. So if there's something I can pray about, let me know. I'm in prayer for all of you generically every day. Please pray for me and my family. We all need that. And anyway, we've got some health concerns for various family members, and certainly would appreciate you just generally lifting us up as well. Like the video if you like it. Subscribe to the channel. We've had a lot of growth here, and I really appreciate all that. If there's anything that you have questions about, always happy to answer those. So with that in mind, I've got a question for you, and here it is. What is the longest lasting tropical cyclone on record? Tropical Cyclone Freddie, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Katrina, or Super Typhoon Haiyan? If you know the answer, type it in the comments section. If you don't, you just have to hang out to the end of the show, and you'll know it by then, and then you can impress all your friends with your impressive weather knowledge. Impressive. Okay, can you do that to the English language? I don't know, I just did it. So anyway, folks, we've got severe weather to talk about, unfortunately, and some potentially significant severe weather, so we're going to get into that right now. Well, it seems like every day this summer we're dealing with severe weather in the northern and central plains over into the Midwest and Great Lakes, and that is the case yet again today, where significant severe weather could unfold later with tornadoes, high winds, and large hail. Right now, this morning, though, we're looking at some rain and drizzle around Seattle and central Washington state. Up in the smokestack of Idaho between Spokane and Missoula, we're seeing some heavier showers. Glasgow up here in Montana and over to Williston, North Dakota, we're seeing some heavier showers, a couple of rumbles of thunder too. And then down south of Des Moines, Iowa, a heavier batch of showers left over from an MCS that moved through. And then over near Raleigh, my old stomping grounds, we're seeing rain this morning. Boy, it's been drizzly and rainy here in North Carolina, and that is not letting up. A couple showers in New York State, spreading in to Massachusetts this morning. Now, here's your severe weather threat for this afternoon. An enhanced risk for North Dakota, Minot, Bismarck, close to Fargo. You all are under the gun for potential tornadoes later today with significant wind damage possible and a significant hail threat as well. The slight risk extends around that, encompassing portions of northern South Dakota and western Minnesota into eastern Montana. There's your tornado threat, 5%, as a low pressure at the surface gets its act together, provides some spin. We're going to see supercells. The timing of this kind of varies between modeling. We're going to see these things come together this afternoon, quickly see supercells probably merge into a cluster and line segments fairly quickly, producing significant swaths of damaging wind, winds gusting over 75 miles per hour, large hail over 2 inches in diameter. We've got 30% hatched for both wind and hail in these areas this afternoon. General showers and thunderstorms with possible isolated severe weather back in northern Illinois, Wisconsin, all the way back through Montana. So watch out today for that. Tomorrow, again, another enhanced threat, eastern North Dakota and northwestern Minnesota, with a slight risk surrounding that and a marginal risk for isolated storms surrounding that. Again, a tornado threat is present. This may actually go up tomorrow as that surface low strengthens a bit. Wind and hail are the primary threats, hail being at this moment the most prominent threat at 2 inches or greater hailstones. We could see some baseball size hail again tomorrow as well. Looking at our Cape map this afternoon, we saw this yesterday, but watch what happens as we get on through the afternoon. This is thunderstorm fuel. Blacks and whites are just insane amounts. We're talking 5,000-6,000 joules per kilogram of Cape, folks. That is a lot of instability. That means when thunderstorms form, they're going to have a lot of fuel and they are going to explode quickly. We're going to see that this afternoon. As we get into tomorrow afternoon, it just pops again back in the threat area over here in the Midwest tomorrow as well. So lots and lots of instability. As we go on out in time, we take a look at Saturday afternoon. You can see where the severe threat's likely to be back here near the Corn Belt in the nation's midsection, where the instability is the highest. Taking a look at the radar this afternoon, as we advanced along this morning, we see those showers working along the northern tier. They're going to abate, but then look what happens. Big supercells develop into a line segment, and that just plows on through in the form of a bow echo across much of the state of North Dakota. I'm expecting to see lots of wind damage later this afternoon into the evening. We're going to see lots of wind reports into the early evening and later on into the evening too. It just carries this on into Minnesota before dissipating after midnight. So lots of activity there. As we roll this back just for a second, look here, we've got showers breaking out in the southeast again this afternoon over here in the Four Corners region, and of course up into the Montana and Idaho area too. You can see some isolated storms there over in Wisconsin and up into the UP of Michigan. Could see a couple of isolated reports there as well. So go through the nighttime tonight, things kind of dissipate, get a little cluster here maybe off of Lake Michigan there. But tomorrow, look what happens. We get tomorrow afternoon, early in the afternoon, we start to see storms firing back up here in our instability axis as that low pressure moves through. Kind of see that counterclockwise spin as the upper low moves into Montana. More storms firing along the southeast tomorrow back into Florida, and then up in the northeast, got a little disturbance working through, give you some rain up there. And there's another cluster developing into South Dakota. Monsoonal flow intact down here in the Four Corners region. And there we go. Big thunderstorms, another bow echo as we get on in towards 7, 8, 9 o'clock. That thing rolls through. Guess who gets it again? Minnesota. You have been just pounded by these MCS events over the summer, folks. I hope you get a break. pretty soon from all of this, but it ain't looking good. The frontal zone lights up through the nighttime hours, and we see showers continue to hang together as we get into Friday and then into Saturday, and Saturday into the overnight. On Sunday, we'll see continued showers and thunderstorms. That's your severe weather threat, folks. Now we're going to take a look at the weekend forecast and see what that's got in store. Then we're going to get into the update on some of the models and what they're showing for winter. Now, this isn't set in stone, but we're going to take a look anyway. All right, we're going to blast through this segment so we have time to get to our winter and space weather updates, folks. Our alerts map is lighting up here in the Central Plains with heat advisories for where we can expect heat index values to approach and exceed 100 degrees. Windy conditions in the Four Corners region with winds gusting 30 to 40 miles per hour. Adverse fire conditions can be expected, so do not burn anything out here. It's been very dry. And extreme heat warnings for the desert Southwest through the end of the week, for temperatures going up into the 1 teens, close to 120. Extreme heat watch here in and around the Portland area, and also up here near northern Wisconsin, so pay attention. But what is gone from this map is smoke. There's still some smoke around, but we're not seeing a lot of that smoke intense enough to cause air quality issues, which is good. It's finally abated to some degree. Still got some rough air here around Milwaukee and Chicago, back into Denver and west there for smoke, and then Las Vegas, Phoenix, and Los Angeles, not all that great either. Here's the surface map. There's that low pressure that's taking shape in the northern Rockies that's going to move into the plains, provide that severe weather and all of that. So we've got plenty of shower and thunderstorm activity through the Ohio Valley down to the southeast. That frontal boundary is still stalled down here, so we're watching off the southeast coast for any potential development. Not looking at anything now, but high pressure continuing to wedge down into the southeast, providing dreary conditions for much of the south, and seeing cooler temperatures though, so that's good. At least we've knocked those hundreds out of the ballpark, and we're now in the 80s, and some places haven't even gotten out of the 60s in a couple of days, so that's incredible for August. Here is the weather pattern in the mid levels, and you can see that big trough working in, big high pressure sitting out here in the Four Corners region, wedging down the apps here. But watch what happens as we go on out in time. This big upper level low works across the northern tier. This high pressure ridge gets squashed a bit as this thing kind of moves on in. We're finally seeing a relenting of this big blocking pattern as we move out in time that has blocked this high pressure ridge in, and you can see those contours. See how they're kind of kinking like this down the eastern slopes of the apps? That is a wedge signature, and this has been in place for about a week now. We're coming up on a week of wedging. That's incredible, but this blocking pattern has just blocked everything up. This thing will move on as we get on into the weekend. Here comes the upper level low, bringing the severe weather threat out ahead of that as the surface low moves in. Saturday, we're going to see that threat shift over here a little bit east into the Great Lakes, down into the Corn Belt region, and that will proceed forward, bringing a trough along behind it in a general fashion as we get on into Sunday. And ridging is starting to return into next week as we work through the weekend. Taking a look at actual precipitation chances as we go on out in time, let's move this along to Saturday, because we've already looked at the radar there. Saturday morning should have some rain moving through the Midwest and lower Great Lakes. We'll see rain developing across the southeast, spotty showers up here in the northern plains, and then we get on into Saturday afternoon and evening in Wisconsin area, Iowa, down into Chicago, Michigan. We're going to see a cluster of severe thunderstorms move through those areas Saturday afternoon and evening, and that'll persist through the night on Sunday. As we work back into Sunday afternoon and evening, there's that front lighting up back through the Great Lakes into the Central Plains. Still see some showers around the Four Corners region out here in the lee of the Rockies, and the southeast again unsettled as we get through the weekend. The upper southeast may do okay, probably be some clouds around, and the northeast back through the Mississippi Valley looking pretty good, in the northwest as well. So that's your weekend forecast. Temperature wise, let's get back down here. 70s in the Carolinas today. That is unbelievable. Up and down the East Coast. 80s returning to the Midwest. And there's the heat surge back through the Central Plains. Hundreds in the desert Southwest. Cool with that trough up in the Northwest. Tomorrow, much the same story. Maybe getting a little bit warmer in the interior sections of the Northwest. Warm in the desert Southwest. Hot down here in the deserts themselves. And hundreds working in. Look at these. 105, 106 back here in the South Central Plains. 80s and 90s working into the Great Great Lakes and still got that wedge signature up and down the East Coast. Saturday, things are finally starting to break down with that wedge, warming back up into the 80s and 90s up into the Great Lakes. Hundreds backing off a little bit, but still hot in the South Central Plains, and then back over into the desert Southwest. Things cool off just a smidge, but the San Joaquin Valley heats up, interior Northwest heats up. And then as we get on into Sunday, there we go, getting hot back into the interior Northwest, San Joaquin Valley, desert Southwest, Southern Central Plains backing off just a little bit. Still hot though in the 90s. And Northeast all the way down into Florida, finally seeing some 80s and 90s here, 70s under the influence of that trough up in the northern plains. That's your weekend forecast. Now let's take a look and see what winter may have in store. All right, I don't have my winter graphic set up yet, but I'm going to go ahead and give you a preview of the winter pattern, at least through the eyes of some of the long-range climate models. Now, these are not infallible, so don't take this literally, folks, but I'm going to show you a couple of things here. This is the CFS, the American Climate Model, in terms of what it's showing in the upper air pattern for December. Okay, we've got this big ridge parked over the mid-south and a trough up here in Canada. If you want snow and cold in the United States, this is not the way to get it. Aleutian high developing as we go on out into January. Look at this big Aleutian high. Boom, that's bad. Big trough in western Canada, ridge centered over the southeast. You can kiss winter goodbye if this comes to fruition, folks. But does that pattern look familiar to you? It should, because we've seen it a lot in the last bunch of years. However, that's not set in stone, and there is February in terms of what the CFS is showing. Here is the Canadian SIPS. It's got the December pattern, ridge centered back west a bit, but still got a big Alaskan Aleutian high up here, troughing in Canada. That pattern persists. The ridge expands east over the course of January, and into February we finally see things die down a little bit with that ridging as a troughing in eastern Canada gets established, and there's the big Aleutian high. And then finally, let's take a look here and see what the European ensembles are showing, and we need to advance this along through the fall. There's December, so not so bad. This is the actual upper air height. Yeah, I'm showing the anomaly map. That's good. That's where I want to be. A little bit of ridging up here in the EPO domain. Not so much a big Aleutian high up here yet, so that's good for December, keeping us a little bit maybe toward normal in December. But look what happens. There comes the Gulf of Alaskan high, ridging across the south, little troughing in Canada, big ridging building in for February. Boy, this is winter cancel if I've ever seen it, folks. This is typical of what? Do you know what this is typical of? That's right, La Nina. Does that look like a La Nina pattern or what? High pressure here in the Aleutians or the Gulf of Alaska with cool conditions, part of Alaska into Canada in the northwest, and then warm ridging across the south. Your storm track would stay to the north, keeping everything south dry, and then the storm track would be up into the northeast, so maybe up in the Great Lakes, northern parts of the country, be a little bit cooler than normal. That is your La Nina pattern. That does not mean that we're going to be in a La Nina and a full La Nina pattern, but that's what the models are kind of showing this far in advance. Here's the sea surface temperatures out in the Nino region. This is where we would find cooler or warmer than normal temperatures, dictating whether we have a La Nina or a El Nino, an El Nino rather. And there it is, cool waters out in this area, looking at October, November, December, January. That average is fairly cool, but it's on the weak side, so we're potentially headed into a weak La Nina. A lot of the sea surface temperature patterns that are in place today are reminiscent of last year, and last year was quite cold across the United States. So just because the models are showing warmth and heat and winter cancel, don't take it to the bank just yet. This is preliminary. They'll get a little bit better as we get on in and get a better handle on La Nina or El Nino, but we're going to potentially be getting into a weak La Nina during the fall and then moving out of that maybe as we head into winter, and there are a lot more variables than that. So that's what's going on. I wanted to show you that, folks. Interesting stuff. Now we're going to take a look at space and geological weather. Well, we are officially under geomagnetic storm watch for G1 or G2, which is moderate geomagnetic storm conditions. You can see that right up here. Why? Well, a coronal mass ejection left the sun and it's headed toward Earth. It's going to sideswipe us a little bit. There it comes right there. You can see it on the spirograph here. That happened a couple of days ago. It's making its way toward us. We could have some aurora viewing up toward the north in the coming days, so watch for that. Trans-equatorial coronal hole turning in toward us. The worst part of it's down here to the south, which any wind that comes out of that probably misses to the south, but we could see an enhancement of solar wind that will also impact the magnetic field of the Earth. Here's here's a sunspot that's turning toward us. It's got a little bit of complexity, not too bad though. It's got some positives, negatives, and positives. We'll see if it grows in size, but here, if we scroll all the way to the top of the screen, there it is. The big one's turning away. The new one is incoming, and a couple more are incoming too. Moon phases, we are at 96.3% waxing gibbous on our way up to a full moon in 2 days. August the 9th will be the sturgeon moon. It will peak right before the peak of the Perseid. So we'll see if you can get out there and see fireballs. I would like to, but I'm not sure if we'll get good light for that or not, given the full moon. 46.05 days, maybe something along those lines, but we'll just call it 46 days until calendar fall, which is September the 22nd this year. Meteorological fall starts September the 1st. Hopefully we'll get an early fall, but I'm not so sure of it. It looks like September might end up being warm. We'll see. Anyway, I'm ready for fall. I wonder if you are too. Some of you are not, some of you are. That brings us in, though, to the answer to today's weather IQ question, and the question was, what is the longest lasting tropical cyclone on record? Freddie, Irma, Katrina, or Haiyan? And the answer is Hurricane Freddie. It traversed the Indian Ocean from Australia to Africa, breaking the previous record of just under 30 days set by Hurricane Typhoon John in 1994. Freddie lasted 36 days. It remained at tropical storm status or higher, traversing a remarkable distance of nearly 8,000 miles. And that's what happened with the weather, folks. And one more thing to be aware of, back on August the 7th, 1959, NASA launched Explorer 6, the first U.S. satellite to return images of the Earth from orbit. It transmitted primitive TV-like images back to Earth from a distance of 17,000 miles, and that is remarkable. Now you know about space, now you know about weather and history, and now you know everything you need to know. Well, some of it anyway. Anyway, I hope it's been a good show for you. I've had fun, and thank you for spending time with me. Tune back in tomorrow for another episode of Cold Rain's Weather World. We'll come at you right early in the morning, record these videos 9, 10 o'clock, get them out by 11 or so. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful afternoon. As always, this is Cold Rain reminding you other channels run 24/7, but we got you covered right here, right now, 4814 on Cold Rain's Weather World. Take care, everybody.